can stick with the topic more easily this afternoon. So for that, make sure that you sit comfortable. And we start always the meditation with bringing the mind to the body, bringing the mind to the present moment. And so you can focus on your body, you can let your mind, you can focus on one place in your body, or you can just scan around the body, but stay with the body, you don't go anywhere else. Or if you want, you can also focus on your breath. And for some people it helps to take a few deep breaths. Deeply breathing in and deeply breathing out, letting go whatever has kept you busy so far. Allowing yourself to be fully present in the here and now. And when you do bring the mind to the body, be aware how your mind is calming down. It becomes more relaxed, more open. And then we set a positive motivation by thinking that we're not listening to these teachings, we're not participating in these teachings just for our own sake. But we do that in order to develop our potential for loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom, so that we can be of greater benefit to all sentient beings. Which means that whatever we learn, we don't keep for ourselves. And that doesn't mean that you have to go around and teach everyone what you have heard or talk about it. But what it means is that what you learn in your experience in terms of open heart, you are willing to give that freely to whoever asks for it or is in need. And then with that motivation, we can start a session. I hope you're all well. I miss the communication that we normally have when you come here to Tushita, or when we have live sessions, in the sense that, we meet in person. I like to be a little bit more interactive than what I can be on Zoom, because it's more difficult to react. It takes more time, it takes more thinking, it doesn't come so easily as when we meet in person. But that's just how it is, and what can we do? The situation that we are in at the moment is is a proof that things do not exist permanently, that things change, right? From one day to the next day, suddenly the world changed in a big way. So that shows the impermanence of life. That shows the impermanence of whatever we thought was certain, or whatever we thought we could rely upon, suddenly gone, change. So do we like change, or do we feel like, no, I prefer it just to be how it is, as always, as before? Just wonder for yourself. In general, I know that people do not like change, that we do not like uncertainty, and that in order to counteract the impermanence that is going on in our life, we hold on to certain things. We create a kind of false securities. We create things that give us the illusion of security. But if we investigate them, they are not that reliable, or not reliable at all, you know. So for instance, what I always find fascinating is how we, I'm not sure if that is also true in India, but definitely in Europe and in America, we have insurance. We can insure ourselves for any disaster that can happen in the world. We can insure ourselves even for our own funeral, you know, when we die, that somebody is going to pay some money for the funeral. Insurance, in order to create a feeling of security. That's what we're doing. And then when we feel secure, we feel that we do not have to worry. And we somehow believe that whatever we insured ourselves for, it's either not going to happen, or when it happens, it's not that bad for us. You know, it's not such a disaster because we have insurance. We also have a lot of social structures. We also have traditions. We also have, you know, habits within the family that we rely upon. Certain festivals are coming back every year. And then when they come back, we eat certain things and we behave in a certain way. Maybe we sing certain songs, or maybe we give each other presents, or these things, we rely upon them. And then there are many regulations within society. We know when the garbage man is coming to pick up the garbage. And when the moment he doesn't come anymore, we don't know what to do. You know, what do we do with our rubbish? We have no idea what to do because we had this regulation. Every Monday the garbage man is coming, and now suddenly he's not coming anymore. So by living our life, if you see how humanity, how people live together, they create rules, they create guidelines, they create traditions, they create all these things that we create in order to have some kind of regulation, some kind of security, helps us to deal with the impermanence of life. So impermanence of life, we can think about that in two ways. We can think about it either coarse impermanence or subtle impermanence. So the coarse impermanence refers to the impermanence that we can see with our own eyes. You know, that we can see how things change. For instance, if you go into nature, you can see the change that is happening through the seasons. Especially if you live in places where there is a winter, where all the leaves are falling from the trees, you know. And so if that is the case, then there is an autumn where the leaves are changing color. And then there is a spring where the leaves start to come out again. You know, this is when you have these 4 seasons, you see change happening all the time. And this change comes back every year. And so although it is changing, it still gives you a security because you know how it is going. When the leaves start to fall in spring or in summer, we know something is wrong. These changes are scary. We don't like these changes because we do not know what to do. Then we have also change in that whatever arises, and if we think about whatever arises, we can think about everything in our life. You know, all the objects that exist, all the houses, all the temples, all the creations, they are all impermanent. You know, they are built up and they can be smashed down, or they can deteriorate over time. But often in the West, you know, we don't have the time anymore to let things deteriorate. When they are not functioning the way we want, we just smash them down, we build something new. Our jobs, impermanent. You know, we're not sure if we're going to keep the job. When I grew up in my country, it was very sure that you had a job. If you had a job when you were 18 years, most likely you would keep the job till you were 65 or 62. And then you retired. You know, we kept the same job. And there was a kind of security. Once you have the job, you can be quite certain that you keep the job. But I also know that there are other cultures where it is more easy to lose jobs. And now also in my country, it's more easy to lose a job. It's more difficult to have a fixed job. And then things become more insecure, right? You do not know if you can rely upon your job. How long are you going to keep it? And in countries like India, it is quite part of daily life that you don't know how long you're going to keep the job. And many people, they just have a job for the day and they have to look every day for a new job. That's insecurity. Insecurity gives a kind of stress. We don't know how long we keep our wealth. You know, wealth is impermanent. There can be periods in our life that money is coming quite easily, and there can be periods in our life that no matter what we do, nothing is coming. Money is no security, but we like to hold on to money as if it is a security. Our health, our body, impermanent, changing moment to moment. We know that when we think back, that there was a time, and maybe we just know that from photos, you know, that we had a kind of a different body, very little. And then we can see ourselves on photos, how we grow up and how we change. When we look in the mirror, somehow we think that we were always like that. Somehow when we look in the mirror, we do not remember that we were a very little child at one point. And when we look in the mirror, we also do not think about what we're going to be one day. More wrinkles, more old. We somehow have this idea that we're always going to be like this. That we were always like that, we're always going to be like that. And then we see some change, yes, but at the same time, we're still the same. Right? So somehow the way we perceive the world, that impermanent nature of everything that arises in the world, I don't want to say we deny it, but we do not see that impermanence as it is. If we look into the world, what is impermanent? There is very little that is not impermanent. So according to Buddhism, with respect to the world, space is what is permanent. Space in the sense of uncompounded space, the space that we can find not outside of objects, but also within objects. That space is permanent by nature. Everything that arises in the space is impermanent by nature, changing moment to moment. Can you see how you hold on to permanence? How, even in terms of the body, if the body is in a twist, we don't like to go there. We feel more secure when we somehow have a symmetrical body and hold on to things. In the, I don't know how you say that in English, asymmetry, when you are not symmetric, somehow the body wants to go to being symmetric because that feels more stable somehow. We don't like that instability of change. So the Course impermanence, we can see that. I'm going to talk about something now. Pretty is very quick. So that is the Course impermanence, what we can perceive, what we can think about, what we can see over time, how things change. Then the subtle impermanence refers to the change that happens moment to moment in everything that also is impermanent on the Course level. Whatever is impermanent on the Course level, which is each and everything, object that exists, the stars, the planets who have been there for billions of years, also they are impermanent. The planet, Earth, is also impermanent, changing over time, coming into existence and then fading out of existence at a certain point of time. But within that coming into existence and going out of existence, within that there is moment to moment a change happening. It is not that something arises and then for a long time is stable and permanent, and then there is the time that it disappears, or that it gets destroyed, or that it fades out of existence. How it exists in actuality is that every moment of the production of something, every moment that something exists, and every moment of the destruction of something is impermanent in the sense that it is changing moment to moment. That change is very subtle by nature. We cannot see that with our eyes. Not in the condition that we are in at the moment. So in order to learn to see that subtle impermanence, we first need to think about it, and then we need to meditate upon it. And then when we get a realization on the level of our mental consciousness, and slowly, slowly, we can also start seeing it with our eyes. So we can also say our body, yes, that came into existence, and then now it seems to be that it is maybe, it might appear as if it is in a condition where it is going to be for a while like it is now, and then at a certain point we get old and we die. But that body is changing moment to moment. And if you think about it, we are now at the best of our life. From here, we are not going to be more beautiful or younger or more capable. Everything, every function in our body will become less, how to say that, will become less, it will function less. Our eyes will see less clearly, less sharp. We need glasses to see things. The reading doesn't go so well anymore. Our ears, they become less sharp. People need to speak louder, or we cannot distinguish the sounds anymore so well, so we only hear certain parts of conversations, but we don't get really the essence anymore. Our mind, our mental consciousness also becomes less sharp, you know. Maybe not, I mean, we can also train our mental consciousness, but if we just live life as it is, we don't do anything special, then all our sense faculties, they will start functioning less accurate, less sharp. And so what we say in Buddhism is that with every step that we do in life, we walk towards death. Our life will be shorter. There is nothing that can prolong our life. So every moment is a moment that we walk towards death. And we cannot stop that. And we cannot avoid death. Death is something that is gonna come for sure. So in the mind, we have the feeling. We do not think about death. Most of us do not think about death. When we think about death, we cannot totally identify that we are really going to die. You know, I mean, and I'm talking for myself, right? I cannot project that onto all of you. Maybe some of you do know very well that you're going to die. I always have the feeling I'm going to live forever. If I'm honest about my feeling, I have the feeling I'm going to live forever. And yes, then when I think about it, I think, well, that's maybe not possible. You know, that's not going to happen. But it feels like that. And I think that is a strong denial of the nature of reality, of the impermanent nature of reality. So somehow there is this denial. We push it forward, you know. We don't think about it. Oh, I'll think about it when it comes. We don't like it. We do not like death. Death is not something that we are looking forward to. Especially if we are not spiritual practitioners, you know, then death is death can feel like I'm gonna fade out of existence, and then, you know, some people believe I won't exist anymore at all. And other people believe, you know, there might be something of me going on, but I will always be a human being, or I will only progress on the path. We create stories to make it more attractive, to make it less fearful. So what do we do in Buddhism? We say, you know, we try to hold on to so many things, but the only thing that is certain in life, the only thing that is certain in life is that we're all going to die. So if we would make friends with death, if we would look into what death actually is, if we would have the courage to think about our own death, then, you know, some people think, well, I'm just going to be depressed. And some people even believe that when they think about their own death, they bring their death forward, you know, but that's not true. But thinking about death makes that you at the same time become so much more aware of life and helps you to first of all, see the priorities for your life, and then make your life more meaningful. Right? If we think we're going to live forever, we don't care. We do whatever. We have fun, we play, we waste our time, we do nothing, I shouldn't say it like that. But we're not looking for the meaning of life. But when we know this life is going to end, this life is not going to be forever. And then at the end of my life, you know, if we think about the end of our life, we want to be peaceful with ourselves and with our life. And if we have that in mind, then we're going to put a little bit of effort in that, how we can achieve that. So I'm going to ask you to write a couple of things down. Is that all right? Giving you some questions for journaling. And let me see if I can put them straight in there. We can read them together to everyone. So I have 3 questions for you. The first one is, where do you find security or stability in? What are you holding on to? And the second is, what would happen if you would fall, if that security would fall away? How would you feel? What would it do to your mind? And then you can question, what would change if I would accept this as a possibility? You know, that something that I hold on to now falls away, and I accept that, and I'm okay with that. So if you see that you're holding on to your house, you know, your house is the most important and you want to keep that and you work really, really hard for that. But what if something happens and the house is gone? You know, like what happens at the moment in America, where fire is destroying homes of people. What would happen if I'm okay with that? What would happen with my mind? Just think about it and write it down. Okay? And I'll give you 10 minutes for these questions. So you have 2 more minutes. And then try to finish the questions or your sentence. And if you're not ready, you can always come back to that. How was that? Was that useful? Was that surprising? What came out of it? Was that insightful for giving you more understanding how your mind works? And could you notice when you describe what you're holding on to, what happens in your heart? What maybe happens in your whole body? I would probably be happier if I let go of what I'm holding on to, says Valerie. And I think you are right, but you need to connect that with your experience, that when you hold on to things that you feel like, oh my gosh, that makes me so tense. So how can I let go of that? How can I let go of me holding on to something that in itself is not certain? It looks like it gives me security, but I can see in actuality it doesn't. So how can I live with the insecurity that I'm not sure about my job, that I'm not sure about my relationship, that I'm not sure about my house, that I'm not sure about, my life? We are not sure about that. How can we live with that uncertainty? How can we be with that and be totally okay with that? Can you imagine that if you would do that, that you are more grounded in reality, more connected with reality than when you hold on to something that doesn't have any foot in reality? These are just false securities that we build up. We hold on to that. And then we believe that that is real and that is going to work and that is going to help us. But what if we become comfortable with the insecurities of life, with the uncertainties in life? Let me see what people have written, because I really appreciate if you give me that feedback. So Pretty says, as I thought about the third question, it felt like I had two choices. Either try to live each experience to the fullest before it disappears to gain every drop out of it, or to keep a distance and not get too invested, as it's all so impermanent anyway. Don't know which is the better way. So that is one way that we can handle stress, you know, our withdrawal, so that I'm not feeling it. That is a way of avoiding. That is also a way of not grounding yourself. That is a way of disconnecting from reality. And so when you do that, first of all, you never feel to the fullest positive and negative experiences. And you also, this is not really handling insecurity or uncertainty, that you just withdraw and you don't feel it, you know. That is reacting with aversion. That is setting yourself up for more suffering in the future. But if you can fully experience it and be with that experience and be fine with that, some are very pleasant, some are very unpleasant, but whichever way comes, if you can be fine with that, then you can really feel what life is about. And then you can find, I don't want to say it is a certainty or a permanence, but you can rely upon that impermanence. And then you learn that you have a capacity to go with the flow, and that gives you a feeling of confidence. And so then the insecurities do not become so stressful anymore. So then Emilio says, acceptance brings freedom because what justifies the grip of fear loosens up. And that pattern behind the scenes dispels to some degree. And you feel naturally more yourself as that pattern of grip of fear disappears. That's beautiful. So that's true, right? When we are in the fear and we hold on to, when the body becomes more stiff, when it becomes more hard, we're not really ourselves. And we know that, but we do not know how to let go, you know. But once we feel, wow, I can let go, we feel so much more natural. We feel so much more connected to who we know or who we feel we are. We become so much more authentic. And that authenticity, if we can connect with that, the mind becomes much more peaceful. I'm not sure if I say your name correct, and I'm really sorry if I don't. Ostejas? It was good. I tried to be aware of my mind, so I knew what kind of answers my mind gives the answers. Yeah, I saw you cannot write down, can you? But you can think about the questions, and you can still observe what is going on in your body and in your mind. And you can, when you let go with your mind, you can also feel how that influences your body. And Todd says, if I can accept instability or insecurity, I would lose the sense of fear I have around them. That's true. That's true. These are beautiful experiences and discoveries. And Paula says, I feel so much has changed in the last 10 years in particular, that instead of feeling loss, I have a sense that I will cope as change is inevitable. I just adjust to the new now. Things may get better, but they could be worse. So why worry? Very Buddhist. That's true. Yes, thank you for that feedback. I really appreciate. So what if, so this is how Buddhism thinks, right? In Buddhism, past and future lives, or we not even talk about past and future lives. Death is inevitable. Death is going to come for sure. We do not like to think about it, because it is a huge suffering, right? It is what the Buddha in the First Noble Truth mentions as one of the sufferings that we have as sentient beings, death. death is like becoming non-existent. So the sufferings that we all go through is birth, aging, sickness, and death. And if we are lucky, we don't have the sickness, and some people have hardly any aging, but birth and death for sure, every one of us is experiencing that. So that death is suffering that we push away. You know, that is what we normally do with suffering, we push it away. But what if we say, okay, I know that that is going to come. What if I start preparing today for that? So that the moment it arrives, my suffering will not be so big, you know? Just as if when you connect with the insecurities and you can be more, when you can be more with them, the fear becomes less intense, the body starts to relax, you know, because we connect with that uncertainty, that insecurity. So what if we connect with death, with the suffering of death already right now, you know? So in Buddhism, we become mindful of death by contemplating what we call the 3 roots and the 9 reasons. And in dependence upon that, we come to 3 decisions. So Vina says it's not a fear of death as much as we may suffer in an illness. Yeah, we are afraid of the suffering. Some people are more afraid of the suffering than of not existing anymore, because I think when I fade out of existence, I'm not there anymore. I won't feel anything. But going towards that last moment, you know, that is suffering. Seeing that everything starts to, anyway, we're going to talk about that now, how we do that. So we think about death is certain. Death is certainly going to come. Why? So there are 3 reasons for that. Because everyone has to die. It's part of the package. And then we can think, you know, is there any sentient being, is there any human being on this planet who did not die? And in Buddhism, we think, well, the Buddha also died. Jesus also died. Very famous people, they also have to die. Our personal teachers, they also die. Our parents, they die. You know, no matter how much money you have, no matter how famous you are, all these famous and rich people, they also die. Right? Death is not passing any door. So we think about that to make sure in our mind that we can see, yeah, I cannot escape this. You know, we have to counteract that feeling that I'm not going to die. Actually, I cannot escape it. It's going to happen. And so our lifespan is continuously decreasing every moment in time. Our life becomes shorter. Whatever is left of our lifespan becomes shorter. We do not know where death is going to come, whether it's going to come early in life, whether it's going to come very late in life, but we know for sure that with every moment that we live, the lifespan is decreasing, right? We're not going to get anything extra. And so if we look in life, then we can see that we are so busy with just sustaining life that the amount of time that we have for spiritual practice is very little. What we do a lot is we believe we have a lot of time, you know. Oh, I can do that later. And then when we think about later, we think we have so much time. But if we are honest and we look into our daily life, 8 days of our day, we are asleep. And then so many hours of the day, we are eating and we're preparing the food and we are shopping. And then so many hours of the day, we have to work. So how many hours are left for practice, even in a normal day? Not much. Not many hours. Some people are lucky if they have half an hour. So If you can see that life is like that and that death is certain, then from that you can develop a determination that you want to use your life to practice the Dharma. So then the second root that we think about is that the time of death is uncertain. And so we can see, if we look into the lifespan of human beings, you cannot be certain that when you are a human being, you're going to be 100 years or you're going to be 80 years. Because there are many human beings, many don't even make it out of the womb. They die before they are born. And then there are many who die when they're very young. Many die in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 50s. Right? So we cannot say that the lifespan of human beings is certain, has a certain span, a certain amount of years. We don't have that. So we never know when life is going to come, when death is going to come. And there are many causes of death. There are many things in life that can cause our death. I was going to say we have a virus in the world that can cause our death, but that is not actually the main cause of death. If we look into the world, how many people die from hunger or from violence or from cancer or from heart disease or from, many, many illnesses, but also nature can come to us in a way that it is destructive for us. People get flushed away by landslides, die within the mud. And also there are things that normally protect us against death, and they actually can become a cause of death. For instance, house is something that protects us, but when there's an earthquake, it can be the house that is killing us. Or medicine, we normally see medicine as something that keeps us alive. But at a certain point, I know that happened with my mother. The medicine, they worked against each other, and the medicine became the cause of death. Right? So then something that normally prevents death can become the cause of death. And then on top of that, we can think about how fragile we are. The human body. We can look like we are strong and healthy, but one tiny little thing happens, one nasty bacteria or virus, or, some people, they get a nail in their finger, and then that nail was polluted and somehow they get an infection in their blood and they die from that. Very little accident with a huge result. Right? Very little creatures. A little scorpion bites you, you can die. A little spider can bite you, you can die. So the body is fragile. It might appear as it is strong and healthy, but it is at the same time also very fragile. And so then in dependence upon these three reasons, and on dependence on the root, which is that death is uncertain, we generate a determination that we should not procrastinate our Dharma practice, that we should practice it now, because we do not know how long we're going to be here. Right? We can't think, oh yeah, I'll do that later. We don't know whether later is going to come or not. Later might never come. And if you know Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he always reminds us that death can come at any moment, We go to sleep and we assume that we wake up the next morning. But how many people do never wake up the next morning? And they all didn't think, I'm going to die this night. They all thought, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning. And they didn't. We do not know when death is going to come. So therefore, we don't know how much time we have left. So we cannot think, I'll do this later. You do not know whether there's going to be later or not. Better do it today. Better do it right now. Right? So thinking about death is uncertain, we stop procrastinating. And then we can think about well, what if death comes? What is going to help me at the time of death? At the time of death, if we are lucky, we have our loved ones around us. But they cannot help us. You know, we might want to hold on to them. And sometimes you see people who die, they hold on to their loved ones. They don't want to go. I don't want to go, you know. But at a certain point, they have to let go. So our loved ones cannot help us. They cannot come with us. And there is a point in time that we have to let go of the loved ones and move on our own. And at that point in time, whatever possessions we have, whatever wealth we have, whatever enjoyments we have, they cannot help us. They cannot alleviate our suffering. They are not going to come with us so that we can enjoy them in next life. You know, we have to leave everything behind. They're not going to help in any way. If you have a lot of wealth, maybe you can buy a good funeral, but you know, you're not going to experience anything of that. So it's not helping you. And then at the end, we have to let go of our body. You know, our body has been with us from the beginning of this life. And we identify strongly with the body. The body is who we are. This is who I am. And then at the end of life, the body is failing. And even if it is not failing, for instance, when we die in an accident, that moment we have to let go. So the body is not going to help us. And so then we have to think, then what my life? What do I going to take with me? And according to Buddhism, the only thing that we take with us is the result of our actions that we have done in life. So if we want to have something good happening after death, we have to make sure that during life we create the causes for that. And so how do we do that? By practicing Dharma or by practicing virtue, not being mixed with what we call the 8 worldly concerns. And tomorrow I'm going to talk about what that means, the 8 worldly concerns. So when we can think like this about death, you know, then our actions will become more beneficial. We are more aware of, you know, we cannot say, oh, it all doesn't matter. We know that things that things do matter. The more we think about death, the more we're going to feel that things do matter. That there is going to be a result of our actions and that we do take that with us. So then we will be more mindful of the actions that we are doing and the actions become more beneficial. And that will make that whatever actions we are doing in relation to our spiritual practice, they become more powerful. And then at the end of our life, when death is really coming, we can say, yes, death is coming, but I have done whatever I can. And due to the experience that you have, doing everything that you can, you know that, how to say, you will not regret your life. You won't think, oh, I wish I had done that. You know, you say, I have done what I could do. There is nothing to regret. And so I know that I created a lot of causes for happiness. I know that I purified as much as I could my negative karma. So I'm relaxed about where I'm going to go. So when we meditate on impermanence and death, what it helps us to do is to purify our motivation. And so tomorrow I'll talk about how in normal life we are motivated by what we call the 8 worldly concerns and how that is actually setting us up for suffering. And so when we think about impermanence and death, that is the best way to move away from these worldly concerns. You know, when you know that you're going to die, you automatically, somehow this life becomes less important. Right? Because I'm going to die anyway. I can put in a lot of work in order to make this life better. And the way I do that is, just about thinking about myself, selfish attitude, self-centered attitude. And I can do, I don't know, what comes to my mind is women who like to make themselves more beautiful or less, so that you don't see the effects of aging so well. This is what they call more beautiful. We have adopted a vision in life that aging is, people who age are not beautiful. So then you're going to make yourself more beautiful. You're going to invest in this life. But if you meditate on impermanence and death, you make peace with the fact that your body is changing all the time and that your body is aging and that you are going to die one day. And the more you make peace with that, it's not a problem. Why would I put effort in that right now when it's going to disappear anyway? So this life will become less important, and maybe you start wondering what is going to be next. What is going to be after this? I've had some students in teachings. They said, well, I don't want to think about what is next. How do I know that there is a next? How do I know that that is true or not? How do I know I'm going to have a next life? So why would I put energy in my life right now in order to prepare for something that I don't even know whether it exists or not? And so what then came to my mind is that the way we live a life now is that we think, there's going to be one day in my life that I'm going to be old and that I cannot work anymore, I need money. And so every day I do save money away for my pension from old. But we know whether we're going to be old or not, right? We do that with the assumption that we are going to be old and that we are going to take that fruit from saving that money at one point in our life, but we're not sure. We might die the day after our pension. We might die 5 years before we go with pension. We don't know. So in the same way, even you do not know whether there's going to be a future life or not. If you know ways that you can prepare, why not putting in some effort every day? And so tomorrow we will look into, if we are just focused on the happiness of this life, that we have a very limited focus, that we are quite self-centered, and that in actuality we are creating causes for suffering for ourselves. And if we think about, I want to open my heart, I want to develop a fearless heart, we need to let go. We cannot think, oh, but I want to hold on to this life. We have to have the courage to let go. Go beyond this limited conception of this is me, this is my life, and it's going to last forever. It's not going to last forever. So thinking about death, thinking about impermanence is helping us to purify our motivation. And purifying our motivation means that we can easily change the mind from the self-centered attitude into an attitude that is working for the benefit of others. And that is what we want. Right? So thinking about impermanence and death every day is going to help you to develop compassion much easier. If you are very attached to this life, it's an obstacle to compassion for all sentient beings. If you hold on to yourself, you're the most important one. You want to be happy right now. It's not going to help you to develop your compassion. All right? So thinking about your precious human rebirth will make that you value yourself as you are, with what you have. There is great value. And then by thinking about impermanence and death, you help yourself to get away from your self-centered motivation and open up to benefiting others. Let me see. There was a lot more that I wanted to talk about today. So do we need to believe in past and future lives in order to develop compassion? Not necessarily. Compassion will make you feel good whenever you practice it, even if you practice it just for this life. It has great benefit, even if you do it just for this life. But in terms of Buddhism, you know, let me see what I can say about that very quickly. So when we start thinking about past and future lives, we start thinking about actions, we start thinking about karma. And by doing so, you know, sometimes I think if we are just practicing compassion for this life, I think we are just doing that when it suits us. But when it doesn't suit us, we easily go back to our old way of doing. You know, we just close the door. Or today, I practice enough compassion now, I want to close the door for that. But if we start thinking about past and future lives, and we start thinking about how our actions have an effect that is going further than just this life, that can help us to engage more easily in virtuous actions. And then at the end of our life, you know, the regret that we have, I think there will be no regret, and it can even be that there will be no fear due to the way that we have been practicing. You know, if you believe just in this life, then once the life ends, death can be very frightening and disturb the mind. And that's what we do not want. You know, we want to die with a peaceful mind. Let's go to our discussion group. So I said this morning that I would check with you guys what you think about the length of time. Somebody said this morning, oh, it is so short, you know. So Philip is going to put up a poll where you have 3 options, you know. So we put a discussion group now with 3 people, or maximum 4 instead of 4 and 5, so that everyone has more time. So how was the discussion group for you this morning? Did you feel that you had enough time when we limit the time to 10 minutes? And I hope Philip is there and puts up the poll. There it is. Six to 4. So I don't know if the other 8 people also can. 11, okay. It was good, it was too short. So would it be helpful, this is a two question answer, would it be helpful if you have less questions? So can you help me with that? If I give you 2 questions instead of 3 questions, that would be helpful. So what if we try that today? I do see I have 2 questions, but there are a few questions within the question. So I think what we do is you start with question 1 and you make sure that everybody answers question 1. And then if there is time left, You look at question 2 and you decide what part of that you want to answer or what part you want to talk about. All right, and we can try, and then tomorrow we can see again if this worked or not, you know, and we can keep fine-tuning with each other so that we find a way that it is going to be so somebody is saying the questions don't matter too much, it's more the people in your group whether you experience your discussion as being too short or too long. So, you know, discussion group is a very good place where we start practicing compassion with each other, you know, listening to each other. Even if somebody has nothing to say, you can still connect with that person, tune into that person, and be curious about what that person has to say. Two minutes more would be helpful, you know, and I know that everyone has a different opinion, so that's going to be really difficult. I shouldn't say on the people, but on the kind of conversation that emerges, yes. And sometimes conversations, they go more easily, but, you know, we are all part of that discussion group. So if the discussion doesn't go well, try to use your imagination and think like, you know, maybe you add a little question that can invite people to talk more. Yeah, I didn't want to put it personally on the people. Sorry for that. All right, so let me give you the questions. So the first question is, are you a person that likes things the way they are, or do you like to change? Do you like change? How do you cope with change? And the second question is, do you ever think about your own death or the death of your loved ones? And if you do, how does that affect you? And if you would remember death more often, how would that influence your life? And I think that is the first one, and then the last part of the last question, they are the most important. So if you could focus on that, I can give you 11 minutes and see how that works, and we check tomorrow again. All right? Or you want 12 minutes? You can give me a thumbs up if you want 12 minutes. 11 minutes. Okay, 11 minutes. We'll do 11 minutes. Okay, Philippe is going to put you in the groups, and then we'll come back in 11 minutes. Enjoy. People are coming back. Oh, you're all back. That went very fast. I'm not going to ask the yes and no question. We'll do that tomorrow with the poll. I just want to see if it was beneficial to think about death, to think about how, you know, to somehow check in with yourself. How do I react when I start thinking about impermanence? Where do I hold on to? How do I think about my own death? Do I ever do that or not? I know that people who know that they're going to die in the near future, they love to talk about death. You know, once there was, I was working at Buddha House in Adelaide, and a father came to me and he said, my son is going to die, my son is going to die. And I said, well, everyone is going to die, you too, you know. And then he said, but my son, he had this muscle dystrophia, so he had only a certain life expectancy, and they knew he was only going to live for another half year or something. And so I said, do you talk to your son about that? And he said, oh, no, I'm not going to talk about that. And then I said, maybe your son would appreciate that. So by making it natural that his son is going to die, that is part of life, and encouraging him to talk about it, he went back home and he started talking to his son about death. And the son was so relieved. He was like, finally, I can talk about this because this is going to happen to me. It is going to happen to me. I want to talk to you about it because I love you and I want to have that connection with you. And the death is part of my life. So if we think about death and we think about our own death, it becomes more easy to also be people who are going to die, and it is easier to talk about this, and it becomes part of our life. It becomes like a more normal event than what it is at the moment. And it's very helpful. The more we are familiar with death and the more we understand the suffering that is coming with death, and we have processed that is not going to come anymore later. That suffering, we already worked through that. So then when death really arrives, we already have done most of the work. Then death becomes so much easier. All right. So that is a very important one, to embrace that. And somebody asked a question about Ostijas. Do I say Ostijas? Loves to talk about death from Buddhist point of view because it makes him so happy about death and that we have the Dharma. So when you talk about death in not in a way of, oh my gosh, this is all going to be a disaster. But if you're going to talk, what is actually going to happen? And how does it work in your mind? And how does it work in your body? And how can we prepare for that? It becomes a very beautiful experience. It is the birth process, entering into the egg and the sperm and eventually coming out of the womb, is the reverse process of the death process. And we all know when a little child is born, we feel very happy. Child, oh, so beautiful, such a beautiful energy. That same kind of energy is there at the time of death, when we leave the body. Because that very beautiful energy that babies have is the more subtle mind. And so at the time of death, the mind becomes more subtle, and eventually dissolves into the extremely subtle mind. And that is the one that leaves the body. And so when you are with a person who is dying and you have knowledge about it and awareness around it, you can actually feel where people are, and you can feel that absorption, and you can feel when they're leaving the body. And it is very beautiful to be part of that. And the more we do that, the less fear there will be in the mind for death. But somebody asked a question, if the meditation that we yesterday did, if that was similar to the way the highly realized lamas die, and it is not. The meditation that we did yesterday on the body of light, no, how did we say that? Can't remember, but we did transform our whole body into light. We do that, it's a little bit related to tantric practices. That body of light is actually what we truly are. That is what we want to develop more strongly, connecting with that, identifying with that. So by meditating on that light body, we actually purify a lot of negative karma that we have created, independence upon the coarse body and independence upon a false conception of who we truly are. And so it helps us to remind us, this is what I am. This is what I actually am. So it has strong purifying effect. It creates a lot of merit, and it helps to bring more awareness to who you are. But the meditation on death that Haim highly realized beings do. That is very different, and that would be, I would need a teaching to explain that, so I can't do that here. Let me have a look if there are any questions. The discussion group was very helpful, and the people in the group are so kind and lovely. And it is very helpful to talk about this taboo issue. It makes it easier. Yes, that is a very good experience. Is there any question left from today? My intention was to talk also a little bit about karma, but I will do that tomorrow. And then we will talk about what we call cyclic existence, you know, how we exist and how we keep repeating what we always have been doing and how we can do that differently. And that is going to be the basis of our self-compassion, to do that differently so that we come out of that, you know, at the moment, the way we live, we are controlled by our mind. We do not have do is to gain control over our mind. And so we'll talk about that. No questions popping up. It took me many years before I started learning, before I started asking questions. You know, when I started studying Buddhism, I had no idea how to ask a question. But questions are very, very helpful. And I'm going to find your meditation. Let me have a look. You mentioned a mind control game. Does that happen with other people too? Now you have to remind me what you mean with that. I mean, other people's mind training, trying to control your mind and destiny and how to deal with that. I think what I'm trying to talk about, I can talk about that more tomorrow, you know, because we somehow have the feeling that we are in control of ourselves, so that we determine what we are doing, that we are in charge. But if you really start looking into the mind and how the mind works, our deluded mind, our attachment makes us so vulnerable for people to hook into that, you know. They all tell us how valuable it is for us to buy their stuff, right? People never tell you, well, actually, you know, this costs you a lot of money. And for instance, the whole sugar industry. We know now that sugar is not healthy, that sugar is almost like a toxic, you know. Some people say that the attachment to sugar is much worse than the attachment or the addiction to heroin. And so now we know that. But when they sell it to us, you know, they sell it as something that is very beneficial for us, something that we should really try, something that we should really eat, but it is very unhealthy for the body. So they use our attachment to the sugar. I'm just trying to send to my iPad, the meditation. I see that as the wrong meditation. Okay. And now I go back to that question. We are, let me see, there was a question above that. Manipulation from either partners or parents. You know, I think tomorrow when we talk about the 8 worldly concern and about our delusions, our attachment and our aversion and how that system works, you will be easier to recognize these patterns. And when we want to practice true self-compassion, you know, we have to see these patterns and we have to let them go and go beyond that, because they take away our freedom. You know, they just trigger our illusions. They keep us bound to a certain way of behaving. So let me see one more question. We are creatures of emotion, social beings that depend on each other, our lives intertwined with each other. How do we cope with death and impermanence in this context of attachment with each other? So we are creatures of emotion, that is true on a certain level, but not eventually, you know, not ultimately. The emotions means that we are not in control. If we say I'm an emotional being, means that I'm just following my feelings. I just do whatever, you know, I feel I have to do. I have no idea why I do the things I'm doing. But we do not have to be like that, right? That is how we are at the moment. But what we can do with practice, with spiritual practice, we can see how the mind works, and we can stop following these deluded states of mind. We can stop following our attachment and our aversion and all the other delusions that arise in the mind. And when we start doing that, we become less under the control of these delusions. And then totally different aspects of our being start to open up. And I think when we start opening up these other aspects, we start connecting much more with our humanness, you know, that what makes us human. We start much more connecting with our essence, with our authenticity. And so, yes, at the moment we are social beings. We need connection. I would say we need connection. And at the moment we make connection with our attachment. That is an involuntary connection almost, you know, that is coming from being impelled by what you need. But if you're going to make connection from compassion, then you are still connected with each and every sentient being from compassion. Then death is just part of life, you know. Then you're not holding on to anymore, oh, you have to stay with me, I cannot let you go. That is attachment. But when there is compassion, we say, I know there is going to be a time of separation, you know, and I wish you the very best. Thank you for everything that we have been sharing, what you have been giving to me. I truly enjoyed, and I let you go. You know, that is compassion. So then that's how we cope. When there is more compassion, compassion is a real protector. You know, compassion is willing to follow life, what is really happening. Compassion doesn't make up stories in order to escape life. But tomorrow more. Can we do a meditation on emptiness? No, not sure. Not sure. I will talk a little bit about emptiness. But I want to really focus on the heart in that meditation and give you the foundation so that you can truly open the heart for yourself. So I haven't decided on all of that. And I'll keep your question in mind, and then we'll see where that takes us. All right. So that's enough for the questions, and we can do a meditation. And today You know, and some people love to do a meditation on death, but also it can freak people out to do a meditation on death, especially when you do it in the evening. And because it is evening here in India, I thought we'll do a meditation on impermanence. Impermanence is much easier to connect with. It's actually helps to free the heart, you know, helps to open up the heart, helps to let go any tension that we have in the body of holding on to. So we're going to do that today. So make yourself comfortable in a good position for the meditation. Try to keep your back straight, but at the same time relaxed. Let the other parts of your body also be relaxed. And let your mind settle down in the present moment. And decide to just stay focused on the meditation. And so we as human beings, we have a body and we have a mind. And we start to contemplate the impermanence of the body. First of all, the coarse impermanence. So think about how your body has been changing over the years. Start at a time that you were a little baby and envision yourself growing up from a toddler, becoming a teenager, being in your 20s, etc. until today. Watch yourself going through these changes from a distance, as an observer with no emotional involvement. And see what a huge change your body has gone through. And then reflect on how your body will keep changing when you grow older. Visualize yourself at the end of your life. Observe how your body has become more weak. Your skin is wrinkled. Your eyes and ears don't function so well anymore. It's harder to do any of the daily activities. And while you observe yourself from a distance, out of space, reflect on the time that you won't be in this body anymore. That time will come one day. You're not there anymore. See how life continues, that your family and friends are still there, mourning for some time, and then they pick up their lives again. Whatever is impermanent by nature depends upon causes and conditions. We need many causes and conditions to be born as a human being. And the changes we are going through in life also depend upon causes and conditions. And so does our death. Now we reflect on a more subtle level of impermanence. Whatever is impermanent changes moment to moment. Think about your organs that are working constantly. Our heart beats every second, pumping blood through the arteries. Our lungs are breathing in oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide in every moment. Blood moves through the vascular system constantly, delivering oxygen and nutrition where needed, and removing toxins and waste. There is a constant flux. Focus on the movement that happens and how your body changes moment to moment. And then look a little bit deeper into your parts, into your body or parts of your body. On the cellular level, cells are dying and are being renewed in every moment. And within each and every cell of our body is a lot of activity going on. Every moment, taking in food, eliminating toxins, providing the cells with energy. So also on the cellular level, the body is changing moment to moment. There is not one part of our body that doesn't change moment to moment. So then bring your focus to your mind. First of all, observe your feelings and reflect on how they come and go. Think about whatever feeling arises in the mind, it doesn't have the capacity to stay. Feelings do not last. And then focus on your discrimination, which is the way you think about things in a general manner. For instance, this is good or this is bad. And then see how this judgment changes with respect to the same object or person. There are people that we like for a certain period of time, and then at another moment of time, we don't like them anymore. And there are things that we don't like at a certain time, and then later in life, we do like them. There are moments in life that we like certain things, and there are moments that we do not like that same thing. Because it all depends, and it is all changing. And then focus on the reactions to your feelings, your attachment and aversion, and all the delusions that arise in dependence on them, such as anger, pride, jealousy. And then be aware or see that whatever arises in your mind is constantly changing. Our mind is never the same. All these qualities of mind, they come and go. Nothing stays forever. And you might have the feeling or the idea that there is an aspect of yourself that you think has never changed. So if you have such an aspect, look into that and check if that is really true. You can focus on that aspect right now and observe the impermanence. Change also happens in things or aspects of ourselves that seem to be quite permanent. And then focus your mind in general. Look back in time and try to remember how your mind was when you were a kid. And then move through your life, observing how your mind has changed over time, again and again. So remember that we all have the tendency to keeping things the way they are. We don't like change, especially when it gives us the feeling that we're not in control. And meditating on impermanence can help us to become more comfortable with the ever-changing nature of things.
Sorry about that. Venerable Jamyang got disconnected. She'll connect right away for the dedication. So please hold on 1 second. Okay, so Venerable Jamyang is not able to reconnect for some reason, but anyway, the conclusion of the meditation was done. So she asked me to tell you to dedicate whatever merit we've created for the enlightenment of all sentient beings, and tomorrow we continue 11 o'clock Indian time. So have a lovely day, a lovely evening, wherever you are. and please come back for the next session. Thank you very much, everyone.